Hello and welcome to Ski Lodge. My family and I are on a mission to explore and document 100 different Colorado communities, and this month we went to Parker. In today's video, I'll explain Parker's history and geography, as well as give you first-hand advice on what we found and what to expect if you go there. Let's get started. Parker was initially inhabited by the Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne Indians. Nearby Franktown Cave shows evidence of habitation as long as 8,400 years ago. The area was then under French rule from 1682 until becoming American with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. The Front Range remained mostly unpopulated until the Colorado Gold Rush in 1858, which brought thousands of new residents. One of these early settlers was Alfred Butters, who established the Pine Grove Way Station on the Cherokee Trail in 1862. A single-room house that he used to sell provisions, handle mail, and provide lodging, it quickly became an important resting point for those entering Denver from the east. Within 2 years, ownership was transferred to George Long and his wife, who moved it a mile north. It then became known as the 20-mile house for its location 20 miles outside of Denver, and was the sixth and final in a set of mile houses that used to provide shelter along the way. Naturally, tension with the local Indians increased with American settlement, but the Hungate Massacre was the breaking point. In June 1864, area resident Nathan Hungate and his family were violently killed on their ranch in an Indian attack, sparking uproar among Americans. This started the Colorado War, with Governor Adams ordering the murder of every native wherever and whenever found. Attacks grew in volume, with the Sand Creek Massacre, Battle of Julesburg, and several more violent events following the death of the Hungates. These issues continued until their official deportation from Colorado in 1869. In 1870, the 20-mile house switched hands again, landing in the possession of James S. Parker. He and his brother George further expanded the property, adding services and purchasing the land around it. As the population grew, they parceled out some of this land, creating the town of Pine Grove in 1873. Pine Grove was connected to the Denver-New Orleans rail network in 1882 and renamed Parker's after the founding brothers. Ranching was the area's primary economy, and the trains greatly helped transport milk and cattle into the Denver area. Gold and other minerals were later found near Castle Rock, keeping the town bustling with travelers passing through and resupplying. By the 1900s, Parker had settled into itself as a small dairy town with just 250 people. The old wagon trail slowly turned into roads as cars increased in popularity, but otherwise not much changed until 1930. Then came the Great Depression, leaving Parker almost abandoned after the Dust Bowl-driven drought killed several heads of cattle and tanked produce prices. The town bank was later robbed, leaving some residents penniless, and strong storms repeatedly flooded the drought-stricken prairie, washing away bridges and roads. Parker Station was closed temporarily pending repairs, but this became permanent when additional storms washed away the southern line entirely. By 1940, only a few families remained in the Parker area. Following World War II, Denver and Colorado Springs grew exponentially, reviving the area to a degree. Parker's first real taste of urbanization came in the 1960s when the area started catching the attention of developers who thought the many hills and pineries would make excellent real estate if subdivided. Several attempts were made by various companies, and ideas ranging from vacation condos to 10-acre mansions were discussed with Douglas County board members. Though none of these plans ever came to be, the town of Parker decided to incorporate in 1981 specifically to protect local landowners from development. Alas, it was only temporary, as the entire Colorado Front Range boomed in the 90s with hundreds of thousands of new families moving into the area. Suburban housing exploded nearby in Aurora and Castle Rock, and Parker finally succumbed by expanding town limits and allowing the construction of numerous shopping centers and neighborhoods. By 2000, Parker was home to nearly 25,000 residents and already winning national awards for its greenery and family-friendly atmosphere. This growth has continued, though extremely regulated, with Parker agencies and residents ensuring the beautiful rural area is not spoiled by overbuilding and lack of planning. As a result, Parker is extremely expensive, with almost non-existent crime. Walking, biking, and equestrian trails are found throughout, and it's one of the nation's smartest towns, with over 60% of adult residents holding a degree. This leaves no doubt that Parker will remain as one of the Denver Metro's most desirable places as the Front Range population continues to grow and space gets more limited. Parker is located 20 miles southeast of downtown Denver on Cherry Creek in Douglas County. It sits at an elevation of 5,869 and has a population of around 60,000, making it the third largest in the county, 14th largest in the Denver Metro, and 20th in the entire state. It is accessed using I-25, E-470, and Parker Road, along with numerous other roads that connect it to the surrounding area. Though often overshadowed by nearby Castle Rock, Centennial, and Aurora, Parker remains the commercial core of the southeast Denver metro, with its name representing most of the communities within a 5-mile radius. With Parker remaining so small until modern times, it never had an appropriate downtown area nor a traditional grid system. Instead, downtown consists of several shopping centers circling the intersection of Parker Road and Main Street. The rest of town is laid out with the major roads running on a fly-by-night north-south grid pattern and all other roads being a jumbled suburban mess. Cherry Creek flows north through Parker into Aurora along with dozens of other tributaries, making the landscape hilly. Reuter-Hess Reservoir is just a couple miles west, but there are other ponds and lakes including Bar CCC, Butterfly Pond, and even Aurora Reservoir. The weather in Parker is typical for the Colorado Front Range, with warm summers and mild winters. A typical July day will reach the upper 80s, then drop into the 60s overnight. The area experiences Colorado's annual monsoon season that brings weekly or even daily thunderstorms from June to August, and its proximity to the mountains and eastern plains means there's an increased chance for both hail and tornadoes. Parker is situated at the very northern extreme of the Palmer Divide, which both increases precipitation and lowers temperatures compared to nearby places. This allows for the growth of the famous local pineries, which have been accommodated into the local aesthetic. Fall and spring are usually comfortable with highs in the 60s, and the leaves begin changing the first half of October. Winter stays mild thanks to the city's location just below the pinyon-juniper zone, with highs typically reaching the 40s and lows in the teens or 20s. Snow comes in bursts, and though most days are comfortable and sunny, conditions can change fast. Parker receives an average of 77 inches of snow, which is a full foot or two more than most Front Range cities. The tree-covered hills around town make wildfires a constant concern, but year-round the weather is typically pleasant. Our trip to Parker went well despite cold, windy weather. We arrived using Parker Road from Colorado Springs, which is a beautiful drive regardless, and parked on Pikes Peak Avenue between Pine and Pikes Peak Drive. We looked around noticing the Little House on the Prairie design cues and the architecture and infrastructure. It was relatively spacious here, with apartments, houses, and businesses living alongside walking trails and empty fields. Despite the chilly temps, we saw several other people walking around too. We went west to the Victorian Peaks building where we turned left. This building is colorful and ornate with several shops and restaurants on street level. Across the street we found the old Parker train station, which now houses a dentist and other businesses. Next door was another building that looked more like a train station than the actual station. At this point we couldn't help but notice how well kept everything was. There was no litter, no buildup in the gutters, and all the buildings were in great condition regardless of age. We turned onto Sulphur Gulch Trail, walking west past shopping centers and apartment complexes to Bar CCC Reservoir. Though just a small pond next to Cherry Creek, it had a park with a ball field next to it, as well as a path that went all the way around. We also found an unlocked public bathroom here. We followed the path to the intersection of 20 Mile Road and Main Street, which consisted of even more apartments and shopping centers. We eventually approached the 20 Mile and Living Wheel parks as we got closer to the busy intersection of Parker Road and Main. This is the heart of town, with O'Brien Park on the northeast corner, surrounded by the town's oldest buildings. It's where the old 20 Mile house used to be and where most of the town's charm originates. Downtown Parker itself is small at roughly 2 square blocks, but it houses numerous stores, restaurants, and cafes. If it's not retail, then it's doctors' offices, banks, and other services. Parker's oldest buildings, the FICA Coffee House and the Schoolhouse, are also found in these central blocks. Modern planning provided plenty of parking nearby, and the sidewalks stayed bustling with younger families and visitors. As we continued east, the Victorian buildings were replaced with replica townhomes and then large city buildings. Town Hall and the Parker branch of the Douglas County Library marked the far eastern edge of downtown. The Pace Center, Parker's massive new event center, is also located here. We then made our way back to the car and then drove around town a bit before taking Hess Road past the reservoir, back to I-25 and home. Overall, we agreed that Parker was a pretty well-rounded place. We were expecting a suburban vibe, which it had, but were still caught by surprise in how rich the history was and how upscale and organized it felt. We also can't stress enough that Parker was exceptionally clean and well-maintained. If we were ranking towns on this alone, Parker would definitely be at the top. I imagine that most everyone living there wakes up happy with what they have and the decision they made. For such a small downtown area, there was a lot to do, too. Everything was picture perfect and the people we encountered were extremely friendly. But we have to talk about the negatives to get the full picture, and really, Parker is just too far out of the way without much happening. For such a large population, the downtown area is small and filled with parking lots. Amenities, though plentiful, consist of large box stores that you can find anywhere. It also sprawls, requiring a car to get anywhere in reasonable time, and housing is painfully expensive. But this is all by design. This careful planning prevents crime, raises property value, and promotes outdoor living, which is exactly what residents want. Taking these opinions and experiences into account, here's where we ranked Parker so far. We hope you enjoyed exploring Parker with us and that you'll join us next time when we visit one of southern Colorado's most popular mountain towns that stays popular among Pueblo residents trying to beat the heat during summer. We'll see you next time in Beulah, Colorado.